Hey, what's going on, everyone? Check out what's coming up this week on Legacies.
How you could be such a man,
Yeah.
but also sound like your balls have been cut off.
Unit!
I probably will never say this again publicly.
Wes, get ready to mark the clip.
He said to me one day, he said, there's two types of people in the cannabis, those that have mold and liars. And it was like, it's really true.
Hey, welcome to Legacies, everyone. I'm your host, Tom Ritchie, joined by Wesley the Wizard Bowles. Wes, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well this morning.
I like that you have to state well. Who was it that we met with that was better than average? He said, I'm better than average. Do you remember?
I can't remember, no.
Better than average. And I thought that was the fucking best.
It sounds like an early guest. I don't know why. That sounds like a very early guest of ours. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, I'm going to figure out who that was. That really stuck in my head. But anyways, let's remind everyone that Legacies is brought to you by Breadstack Retailers. It's time to up your e-com game. It might be time for an upgrade. Love that team over there. We had a nice meet with Rael last week. Dude took a motorcycle. He's Ottawa, right? Ottawa. All the way down towards some...
Yeah, all the way down, and then he went to Chicago as well.
Chicago.
He ended up in Chicago.
I mean, that's hardcore. I do know people that take quite the exuberant trips on there, but I mean, it's iffy at this time of year. Are you going to run into snow?
Yeah. Well, he was telling us too that he picked up like the most amazing flower ever. And where was he? Michigan?
Michigan. Yeah.
And he was like, it was
Michigan
10 times cheaper. And
I'll give it to Michigan. Michigan has some fire flower. They've got some incredible operators there. Not to say that Canada doesn't. We've got a lot of great ones here. But when you are in Rome, act as the Romans do, and he was passing through. So, anyways,
well, he sent those pictures of the inside of that one retail location in the States, and I was like, look at the branding on the shelves. Look at this shit. It's just
period.
Like a real retail store. It's great.
I did not catch whether or not there was veils on the store windows. The U.S. is just so different when it comes to cannabis marketing, sales, everything. It's all different. I don't know. Listen, you we're about to get in the story, and I'll hit that in a second. You kind of went MIA on me on the weekend. I'm like, where the fuck is Wes? Where's Wes? And then didn't want to bother you because I'm like, I don't know, maybe he's gallivanting. Who knows? Maybe he's enjoying life, but not the case. Food poisoning.
I was a little sick this weekend.
I can't say that I've ever had, because they say when you have food poisoning, it comes on immediately. I can't say that I've ever had food poisoning. I've had food that turned my stomach, but not like in you, out of you. I don't know if I've ever experienced that. I don't want to. Knock on some wood. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, it's I'm recovering still, but
didn't you hit Chick-fil-A? Listen, I always called it Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A. Didn't you hit Chick-fil-A last night?
I went there last night because I remembered that we got one now in Burlington. Just opened up again. I lived in Texas for 7 years. It was a fucking
staple. They would have had one there. Yeah. What about Sonic? Sonic burger.
Sonic. They've got some like nice ice cream and stuff like that in a hot day, but their food, I wouldn't touch that shit with a 10-foot pole.
Okay.
The reason I like Chick-fil-A is, and we're probably gonna get hate for this because there's a ton of people that hate Chick-fil-A for their political views and their religious stances.
I don't know any about that stuff.
What the owners do with their time is, But anyway, it's just, I love it because it's just a plain chicken sandwich on a nice bun with 2 pickles. It's super simple and nice, and it's just delicious. It's just delicious.
What's the one that steams their burgers? White? There was a movie over it. Harold and Kumar. What's it called?
They don't really steam them, but they put them. They all go on that flat grill. You're talking about the tiny square burgers, right?
I don't know. I've never experienced one. Excuse me, but what's it called? White
Castle.
White Castle. That's it.
Yeah.
You ever obviously spent a lot of time in the U.S. Have you had those?
So I don't know if I had a bad experience. The only experience I've had with White Castle, and this is probably skewed, was I was in with a buddy in Las Vegas, and it was like, I think it was like 2 or 3 a.m. We're fucking shit faced. So here's how you know, to me,
everything
that
tastes good when you're in that state.
Well, that's the thing. If everything's supposed to taste really good when you're that drunk, these tasted awful.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't get what the hype is about with those, man. I really, really don't. Because they're grilled only on one side, right? So they put the beef patty on the
that
grill.
seems lazy.
And then they put the onions and the bun on top, and it kind of all steams together.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know. They did not taste great to me. And especially
we don't have any here, right? There's no White Castles in Canada, is there?
Good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure actually, but
I haven't really
we're not missing anything,
ventured,
in my opinion.
Since switching my diet back, I have not ventured into too much fast food. I am still terrified of the vast majority of that, caloric-wise and grease. And I mean, I loved the McDonald's French fry. I loved it. But
what are you talking about? You love Burger King. What are you talking about? Every time, I feel like every other time we're together, you're...
Yeah, but that was before. I was getting their vegan burgers. What were they? Beyond Meat, because they still char broiled them. They were still decent, but haven't had a Whopper since. Haven't had a Big Mac. Although I did find some McDonald's evidence in the trash the other day, and I think my daughter had a late night episode with it, and I'm like, oh my god, I got to get a Big Mac. And I think from the moment I have it, I'll probably regret it. But the McDonald's fries, loved them. Hate the fact that they'll last longer than us.
Hey,
they will be on this earth longer than this, and I always got gut rot from those immediately.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a sneaky McDouble. Just a little McDouble is just
my son loves
next level.
I don't know if it's McDouble, but he's like value. I mean, I've taught this kid everything now when it comes to value. He's like, value, I can get 3 double cheeseburgers for $6 or whatever it is. I'm like, well, let's first discuss if you should be eating 3. And then we'll go from there. I don't know. Did I tell you, went to a Led Zeppelin cover band concert? Did I tell you I was going to that?
You mentioned when we went to the OCS campaign last week, you mentioned on the way there you were going to go there.
I can't remember. Red Rover, I think, was the name of the band, and a huge Led Zeppelin fan. I was skeptical, right? I'm like, oh, there's a couple bands that, one is The Hip. There's one really good cover band. Or tribute band. These are tribute bands. They're not cover bands. They are true tribute bands. Pink Floyd I've seen. It was like the Pink Floyd Experience or something. It was fucking phenomenal. So anyways, we went to, it's in Delhi, Ontario, this beautiful place called Capital 33. They've completely redone it. They've got this gorgeous restaurant up front, this beautiful venue out back, and then they've got Airbnb lofts if you can't drive beyond it. So anyways, first song, they hit it, a little off key, a little out, and I'm like, oh boy, what did I get myself into? And I just consume a nice big Simply Bare Harlequin. I'm like, okay, we'll see. And they got fucking really good, like really good. Oh yeah. And then I think it was the second last song they did. Getting older, it's like these bands are wrapping up around 11, which is perfect for me. But it was No Quarter. No Quarter is by far and large my favorite song. Oh man, they nailed it. Like the keyboardist, holy shit. This guy, I don't know if you've ever watched Ted Lasso. Tanya turned to me once, and there's an individual in Ted Lasso. His name is Trent Krim, the Independent. He's a reporter.
The Independent.
Yeah. Okay, so, the dude looked exactly, the keyboardist looked exactly like Trent Krim. Exactly.
Nice.
But anyways, they were phenomenal.
Did they play Out on the Tiles?
I do not think they did. No, they did not. No, I can't remember their entire set list, but they didn't play that.
And how was because every time I go out now, you can have a great cover band or a great band, but the sound guy in control of that room is what makes it. Like you can have a mediocre band with a great sound guy, and it just sounds
100%. Yeah. What's that weird? So when I don't know if it was No Quarter. I actually have the drum solo. I'll send it to you. I recorded that, and I don't know if it picks it up, but being a drummer, you love this. But the lead guitarist, older dude, like these were older gents, but funny enough, would still be much younger than the entire band of Led Zeppelin. But they were still, late 50s, early 60s anyways. But the lead guitarist had, what the hell are they called? Sheldon plays one of those weird...
A theremin?
Yeah, it was something along those lines. And so he's got like a bow out and he's playing his guitar, and then he goes over and he starts playing. And I'm like, wow. Wow. Like,
Yeah,
this guy's my fucking high school science teacher, I think.
A theremin's a tough instrument because it's got its place in a couple of things, and it's really easy for that thing to sound annoying as fuck. So it's got to have its place, and you've got to be perfect when you hit that.
Well, they nailed the music itself, and obviously, how the hell are you going to sing like Page? Like, it's got to be one of the hardest things. So I've
never understood with someone like Robert Plant how you could be such a man, but also sound like your balls have been cut off.
I don't know, man. I don't know. You know what's interesting though? So I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I watched The Upside. That's the one with Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston. And there's a lot of opera music in it. Dude, I've gotten right into opera. Don't hate me. But
Crazy.
I don't know what they're saying. I don't know the names of the songs. I don't know any of that. But I fucking love it. And it is so uplifting. I use that in the morning. So even, getting the studio set up, getting ready this morning, opera's on. It's either opera or jazz. Don't get me wrong. I still love everything. Not so much country though. I'm not a big fan of the country.
You're on my watch list now then, if that's the case, because, and I'll tell you why, because I think I've heard studies before where high-end CEOs who listen to opera music end up being quite psychotic. So we're going to have to keep...
We're going
to keep an eye on that.
Well, we don't have a physical office yet. If we ever do, and the opera's pumping, maybe just don't knock on the door.
I'm going to get Dr. Ira Price back in here for a full evaluation.
Come on in, Wes.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Like I need any more crazy ideas. I probably get 6 of those shut down a week.
Speaking of music, though, I am excited. I'm going to Iron Maiden this weekend.
When you told me that, I'm like, what the fuck? You're going to see Iron Maiden? Like they still tour?
I'm pretty sure this is like number 4 or 5 for me. And here's what I love about going to see Iron Maiden. They're always better live than they are on the album, which is hard to do. But when they play their greatest hits like all the time. Like it's not like they've done a couple of tours with like the Book of Souls and stuff, but even then, they always play the hits, and it's just that's what I'm there for. And they still shred.
I don't think they've released any new music in 30 years, have they?
No, they have. Yeah, they have. The Book of Souls came out back in 2017, 18, I think.
Really? I'll have to check it out.
They still release new music.
Ever caught it. No. Anyways, we managed to visit the OCS pop-up. We put out a video. People are still up in arms. If their goal is to shock and awe and make you feel, that store does it. Like you remember me saying to you, I'm like that. I don't even like the energy in the store, and it's not the people. The people are great. It was dark, gruesome, and the naming and the labels on the products. I get what they're trying to do, and obviously they're looking for some earned media in this case. I haven't seen a lot of it. I did see, I think the Star had David Lobo on and did some of that, but all in all, I would say the vast majority of the industry, including the retailers, and we're not talking just Ontario. This is like, we see reports from BC, in Alberta, in the Maritimes, like people just, what are they doing? Now, obviously, those products are sold and distributed through the OCS, so they do have some sort of relationship. And I think the one thing that stood out to me the most is, okay, do it, don't do it. We get what you're trying to accomplish, but you have so much revenue that if you would just reduce the fees to operate with the OCS, and I'm saying fees in general, right? So the cost of wholesale, increase the margins for the producer processors, the suppliers, the brands, companies, and reduce some of the, give some back.
Maybe not compete with the retailers as well.
Well,
I don't know.
See that I've always had an issue. I understand why it's there. I mean, the original intent was only online, which in what world do we live in where we thought only online was something we should do?
Yeah. Here's the other thing too, is when we went into that store, I don't know what I was expecting in regards to what they had in the store and what they had on the shelves and the packaging and stuff like that. I was honestly expecting maybe that it was not going to be it felt fairly high budget, unfortunately, which is what, like when you looked at the packaging on all those products and you looked at some of the video displays and some of the design of things, I'm thinking, because I do contract work for design and all that stuff, right? And I'm like, these are not minimal things. Like these took
Oh,
You
that took a long
design
time.
individual packaging for tons of SKUs.
Yeah.
All these video, like this took a lot of work, and this
it's
was
a big
expensive.
budget.
Clearly,
It's a big budget. And I think you submitted yesterday under the Freedom of Information Act to request what the budget was. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So I submitted an FOI request to understand the budget and cost associated with the campaign. I did ask for some additional details, but unfortunately the ministry that this goes to will not have the information. Like part of this information we'll have to get from the OCS, and part will have to come from the Ministry of Finance from this FOI request. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know how they would have to report that. I mean, it's part of a government agency, and their excess goes to the Minister of Finance from what I understand. So I don't know. Hopefully we are going to do a follow-up though. So we'll have a spokesperson on. We met one of the individuals from the agency that was involved, which was LG2. Everyone's going, what agency? What agency? I'm telling you right now, it was LG2. That does not mean this is anything. You shouldn't get mad at LG2. They were contracted by the OCS to carry out this campaign. And listen, I worked media, I worked advertising and marketing. I understand what the creative process is. I understand bringing it to market and execution. From that side of it, they're doing well. I'll give them that. They are doing well.
Yep.
But this campaign runs all the way through to November something, but then again in
after the pop-up closes, in February 2025, there's a follow-up part to the campaign, which I assume is more digital. But yes.
I didn't realize that their takeovers were like what Fandom and it's not Sports Center, Sportsnet, Sports something. I don't know.
Fandom. They did the Reddit takeover.
Reddit,
a couple other places. Yeah.
They got quite a bit of lashback on Reddit, from what I understand. But I don't know. I just after being there and seeing some of the viewpoints, I understand again all sides. I get all sides. I'm not an operator. I'm here to support the operators. We are here to support the operators and. I just see it on both sides. I see what they're trying to do, but at the same time, for me, I get why fear sells, right? Fear sells. It works. You know, it's either fear or passion or positivity or negative and positivity. In this case, they went that route. I think I would agree with many intelligent individuals and operators in the industry that they would rather, if they were still to execute in this campaign, that it wouldn't be the fear mongering side of it. It would be, let's promote the regulated. Let's not bash the illicit. I still have friends in the illicit market, and we all know them, especially the operators in the elite and the legal regulated side know them. They are friends with them. Not all their products are shit. A lot of them are tested. So rather than the fear mongering, bashing on the illicit, I would rather potentially have seen more positive reflection for the regulated side.
I also think it's tough too because I don't think that the timing of this campaign was great in relation to everything else going on in the media at the moment, right? Like and again, you plan for a campaign, you can't foresee what events are going to happen when that campaign runs. There's a ton going on in Parliament, and I think a lot of it, any hope they would have had at real media exposure from that side, I think has been drowned out potentially by everything else going on.
Yeah.
So
that's a good
away
point.
from
It's
the
a really good
effectiveness
point.
of it too.
But I mean, so David Brown over at Stratcan is reporting, like we've seen illicit market decline since legalization in general. And I think it still is. However, the retail side of that, which would all be encompassing, I guess, but the retail side is on the rise again. Now, is that brick and mortar? Yes. Is that online moms? Yes. So I don't know, maybe the timing is decent when it comes to that, but at the same time, if the campaign is designed to influence the Canna Curious or the newcomers to the industry or those that just surely don't know, again, I've shared friends and family have come to my house with product before and they're like, oh, I got this at such and such. I'm like, it's not regulated. Like, oh, yeah, it is. I bought it in a store. I can buy a Gucci bag on where it doesn't mean that it's a Gucci bag, right? They don't have to follow the same rules, but anyways, I think we just need to, pour more attention into properly promoting, open up the regs a little bit more. Let's see some reform so that the operators, they've all said it. The unanimous voice is take less, give us a little more, and open up the regs so we can properly market. And on that, AGLC comes in and goes, oh, by the way, sampling can only be to store owners, not at events.
Oh, this is the Alberta? Yeah.
The AGLC, yeah, the Alberta Gaming and Lottery Corporation, or whatever it stands for. Listen, I'm sure there's a lot of great individuals that work there. Whoever made that decision to put that statement out on the heels of so many great events and some traction, you made a mistake. This is, to me, it's not directly related, but it still falls in that stigma. Like, let's reduce the stigma. You know, we're never going to move forward as an industry when we see this happen, right? The AGLC is a little bit overbearing in this case. They know that this happens. Ontario knows it happens. The AGCO knows it happens. The BCLDB, they know as well that this happens. Listen, it's not coming out of your budget. These are operators. They're their samples. Yes, okay, let's track them. Let's understand. We've got product going out. Okay, report it, CTLS, yada, yada, yada. But back off. There's enough restriction. There's enough restriction in the industry. If operators, brands want to put samples out, that's their cost. They're not harming anyone. Back the fuck off for once.
Yeah, if I'm a small retail operator, I'm the store owner, and I've got maybe 3 employees, and I get this sample, and I'm expected to have these 3 employees of mine push this product that I want to bring in.
Sure.
How can I do that? Unless, so they've got to now go out of pocket to buy
even
the product
just to understand, should we bring it in, Wes? Like,
right,
you know,
right.
They're like,
That's
oh,
what
the
I mean.
store owner. And Trina Fraser made a really good point, which is, and I see the argument side of it, but how can a corporation be a store owner? How does a corporation consume that sample? I get it. I know we're playing with words here, but I mean, come on, if they want to drop, so I am the store owner. I may not all store owners, listen, AGLC, not all store owners consume cannabis. Believe it or not, some of them just got into it for business. That's it. So I can't distribute that sample and go, hey guys, what do you think of this? Should we consider this? And then they go in and they do their due diligence after trying it. They're like, oh, that's a pretty good product. Do they have marketing? Are they supporting us? Do they have distribution? Great. Yeah, let's bring them in. And I can tell you right now, them putting out that statement is not going to stop this from happening. It will still happen. You're just going to make them feel icky about doing it. Just stop.
Yeah.
And right on the heels of Randy Rose grow up, like, I have to imagine, Randy, I love you, man. But like, I don't know, there's sampling that goes on. Do not abide by their rules. Continue to push the envelope. Like, I get it, legalities. Consumers, no, I still say, let's draw a line. If consumers, we'll figure that out with the regulations over time, right? We'll figure that out. I can go into an LCBO and there, would you like a sample of Bailey's? Would you like a sample of Sandbanks wine? That's okay, right? But not in the cannabis side. And I get it. We still have a million miles to travel when it comes to the regulations and reform of the regulations. But for me, like, just back off. People know what they're supposed to be doing. They're not harming anyone. They're not, like, it's their money. It's their budget. There's argument of, does sampling work? Not for us to determine. That's for the brand to determine, right?
Yep.
So,
yep.
Anyways, and on that, one more thing as well, the BC Cannabis Alliance, is that correct? It's not coalition, it's BC Cannabis Alliance.
Correct.
Right? Sign the petition, folks. I think Atlanta from Dabble said they're right around, what, 500?
Yeah, right around 500, and their aim is for 5,000.
5,000. So let's 10x that shit.
But yep,
let's 10x it.
Exactly.
There's no reason. I mean, we'll share the links. We're going to put it in this video. Just go down to the comments. You'll find it. We've shared it before. We'll continue to share it. Just sign the petition. It's pretty simple. Put your name in. You don't have to donate necessarily. You can. But put your name in, sign the petition, follow up, confirm. That's the biggest thing. Okay. You will get a response from signing the petition from Change. I think it's change.org. You have to confirm that. Otherwise, your name is not on there, and check your spam. That's important as well, because I think mine was in my spam.
Yeah, exactly. It prevents a ton of people just refreshing that browser and putting different names in, send a confirmation email.
Larry the cable guy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, sign that petition. It's super important. We need to see more of this happening across all the provinces. Today's going to be an exciting episode, Wes. Exciting episode. They always are. We've got Pierre. I think Paul might be joining, but from, I don't want to say the dirty word. We're going to see if they've changed that. CSAC. Sounds dirty. But Cannabis Standards Alliance Canada? Cannabis Standards Alliance Canada. Yeah, I need to clarify that. Me and my acronyms, I don't do well with the vast majority of them. But we've also got RadSource on. which is another controversial topic in a way. And this is part of our, second part of our 3-part series, which is clean versus dirty weed, although we haven't officially titled it that. I think the episodes are Keep It Clean. I think Keep It Clean. Keep It Clean. Yep. But again, some controversy around remediation and does it change your cannabis? Does it degrade it? No, I think what we need to clarify, at least on this episode, is the differences in technologies or processes of remediation, because there's a ton. E-beam, X-ray, gamma, and then you get into steam, and they'll tell us all about this, I'm sure.
Okay.
But,
Nice.
There's certain individuals in the industry, I'm a bit of a purist myself, that say it fucks your terps, it degrades your cannabis, and all these things. And I think the evidence is there, scientifically proven, that certain technologies used for remediation do not affect the quality of the cannabis one bit. We'll see. I don't know. RadSource has the answers, though. So we're going to have them on, as well as Pierre and maybe Paul. Paul from Sister Merci, unless you're in Chicago and on the other side of the border, it's Sister Mercy. It's Sister Mercy. Anyways, so we'll have them on right after this break.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Pierre Killeen of Cannabis Standards Alliance of Canada. Pierre, welcome to Legacies. Number 1. 2, did I get that right?
Tom, happy to be here. Thanks so much for inviting us today. Thanks to anyone that's tuning in and listening. You got the name of the Cannabis Standards Alliance right, but my name, I'm French-Canadian/Irish, so it's Killeen. But
Killeen. Pierre Killeen.
You're not the first person to get that one.
Je parle français un peu.
Yeah, that's
Pierre, thanks for joining us. We're obviously excited. We connected quite a while back when CSAC, I keep saying CSAC. Have we changed that at all, the way we're going to say that? Because I know we were joking with Paul at Sister Merci.
Our website is CANNSAC.org, so you can use
CANNSAC.
I don't know if that's any more appropriate.
Regardless, yeah. Well, listen, not-for-profit set up to standardize, or at least influence standardization of testing. We're going to let you talk about that and get it right, because and I want to talk about some controversy on it as well, if you don't mind. We'll get to that, but first let's talk about your history, what led up to this, because you're not new to the government in Health Canada, and I understand that you worked a little bit with our buddy Shane Morris once upon a time as well.
Yeah, I was employee number 70 at back then it was called the Hydropothecary.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They were the only licensed producer in the province of Quebec. And I worked with Dr. Shane for about a year and a half or 2 years before he went on to Aurora. So I learned actually a lot from Shane and really benefited from collaborating with him. After Hydropothecary became Hexo, and my role there was let's say, helping normalize and build social acceptance around cannabis. And my job title was Vice President of Corporate Communications and Government Relations. But it was, I'm sure you'll recall, Tom and your listeners will, a lot of the fears and concerns in the lead up to legalization about what this was going to mean for, society, for our workplaces, for our streets, for our schools. And these concerns were they were acute, or they were intense in the province of Quebec. And my job was to help manage and sort of normalize this new industry with decision makers in government and in media and in business. So that's how I got to know Shane. After that, I did almost 2.5 years with the Cannabis Council of Canada, where I was responsible for all the policy, legislative, and regulatory affairs stuff. I'm a bit of a policy wonk. So I'm from Ottawa, Tom. You know what I mean? So we're kind of, and I look
like, hold it against you. It's okay, Pierre.
Yeah. And I kind of look like a bit of a policy nerd. So, and that's when I first became aware of the unintended consequences adverse consequences of the gap between regulation and policy and their impact on the industry. And that's kind of what led to the creation of the Cannabis Standards Alliance. Industries use standards to narrow the gaps between the rules and everyday practice.
Yeah, what a crazy concept. It's a crazy concept. You're out of your mind.
I've had many mornings. Well, it's, so I am a policy wonk. So there's, what an interesting sector to be in if you're into policy and government relations and law and all that stuff. Like if you look at the struggles that Germany's had in trying to build an adult use industry, you know what I mean? This is really, really tough thing to do. So I think probably what adds to the complexity of this, Tom, is the diversity of this sector. Even the big companies, struggle to get 6-7% market share in the category.
Right. Yeah. And if they're doing that, they're doing okay.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, right? Which is a far cry from where I think we'll be in the future. But again, it's, someone sitting at 5%, they're not doing too bad. But Quebec, I want to touch on Quebec for a second. Why Quebec? Why such stringent regulation around, no more than 30%, no vape, no this, no that? Like, it's just, what was the reasoning behind that? Do you know?
Well, my guess or somewhat educated opinion would be a couple of things. One is this was very much a Justin Trudeau Liberal Party of Canada issue.
Oh, okay.
And so there's always been an apprehension around, the federal power in the province of Quebec. This, this is being imposed on Quebec. So there's that concern, Two, and this is like, I think I'm going to lose all your listeners with this one, Tom.
You'd be surprised.
I apologize. Quebec has a different legal system and a legal tradition, which has in the Western world where we have the common law, judge-made law.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of flexibility around and areas to innovate in our legal systems, in our economies, in our societies. Quebec is they've got this Napoleonic code where all the rules are written in a book that's about this thick that you study for 3 years in law school. I'm a lawyer. So they don't like gaps and looseness.
Okay.
So given that this was such an unknown thing, I think their legal tradition, their political tradition, and maybe even their cultural tradition. I will never forget, the chief of police for the city of Quebec was asked, now that it's legal, what do you think about your police officers consuming cannabis? And he said, I would never want that to happen because it's immoral. So there's a whole, hey, my family's from Quebec and I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble sort of making any more generalizations. So,
Yeah, it's tough, and we saw minor echoes of that, obviously, in Ontario, and you being as close to it as you are, Bill Blair, adamantly against cannabis and illegal organized crime, and okay, I get that part of it, and then joins the board of directors, makes investment into the industry, and it's like, oh well, how things change, I guess, right? But anyways, I do like that so from the perspective of gaps, when you talk gaps in law, I do like tightness. I like clarity. I do enjoy that. And for the reason that it just helps everyone understand how to operate, right? And I think that's one of the challenges that we see in the industry right now is we call them gray areas, right? And I think it's because there's the opportunity for interpretation, and that's where individuals with a law degree like yourself or others, Kirk and Harrison and Trina and everyone comes in and they're like, that's not quite the way it is because, this can be interpreted in this way, and then they have to prove it. And it's a show me, right? Show me. So I do like that there is tightness and, little room for error or gaps. But at the same time, for the outside, those like myself looking at it going, man, that's too tough. That's too strict. That's too stringent. I couldn't operate like that.
That's a great question, Tom. Like in our journey in trying to bring the community together and bring the sector together to create the Cannabis Standards Alliance of Canada, we've consistently heard from people that they are looking to standards as a way to create a level playing field.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the opportunity that's in front of us.
Right.
For an industry that feels, or a sector that feels over-regulated and poorly regulated,
Mm-hmm.
standards provide us with the opportunity to come together to create our own set of rules,
Right.
to oversee our own compliance, and to reward companies that want to adhere to those.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the opportunity and frankly, I think the urgency to come together as a sector,
Mm-hmm.
to create some rules that work for us.
Right.
When you think about the first area that we're focused on, which is THC potency in cannabis flower, and trying to create a let's say a level playing field and a shared set of rules around how we measure and report on THC in cannabis flower products. Like I don't know if you were there, but I was at the C45 event in Hamilton. I can't remember, less than a year ago, and
Mm-hmm.
on the stage was Health Canada, on the stage was the OCS, and on the stage was the AGLC,
Mm-hmm.
which in response to calls for action on the front of THC potency, said, we don't set standards, we want the industry to set standards, and so we have this opportunity, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I think, if I could, one of my messages with your community would be, and your listeners, is that, we are them. Well, I probably don't look like them, but we're trying to, we're bringing them together, and
Right.
we want to create this opportunity to set our own rules.
Yeah. So is that normal throughout government, where the government for other industries? So we had talked about this before a little bit, because I want to unfold, like, how do you even, like, this is a massive undertaking, massive. But is it standard where a government would indicate, no, we want the industry to set those standards, rather than an overbearing approach from government to say, here's your standards coming from, Mount Sinai with the Holy Grails going, these are the rules you shall live by. And in this case, for them to make a statement, well, no, is it one, lazy, or is it just normal that they would expect? And if it is normal for an industry to set their own standards, what other industries have done so?
So, I'm not here. I'm clearly not a spokesperson for government.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when our model and our approach is based on how other industries have come together to create standards. So you would have, the fair trade designation in coffee that helps people understand, the organic certification in foods.
Mm-hmm.
You would have the Maritime Stewardship Initiative that would look at sustainable seafood practices. You would have something like this in forestry.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the closest analogy is the VQA, when the wine industry came together to say we need a way to signal quality around domestic wines to consumers. And when you go into, I know you're in Ontario, when we go into our LCBOs, there's a VQA section, and there's a VQA label on wine products. So and you're right, this is a massive undertaking. And for this to bear fruit, Tom, we have to reward companies that want to adhere to these rules and adopt these standards. So, when you think about it, we have a very fragmented industry,
Mm-hmm.
very diverse. I think the OCS has like 4,000 SKUs.
Yeah.
So how do you stand out in that world?
Right.
And I think what one of the opportunities we have is to use quality to help as a signifier. And I know that's a a loaded term, and we're not going there out of the gate. We're going to focus on THC potency out of the gate. But I think, being ambitious or being naive, let's say naive,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We do have an opportunity to create a quality standard for flower, for vapes, for all the categories across our sector.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, from the perspective where I see it, because obviously I'd like to understand why potency was one of the first opportunities or facets to tackle. But because there's uproar, right? And we've seen this a multitude of times. We've had Rick from High North Labs on, huge supporter of theirs. We know that they are, if not the premier, one of the premier testing facilities within Canada or labs. But is it like there's a lot of chatter on potency, or is it there's issues? And when I say issues, I'm going to say it this way, because I have seen specifically where a certain brand, I won't mention the brand or their cultivar, is 33 or 34% in Ontario. They have distribution in Quebec, and the exact same product is somehow 29.8%. Now, if I were to look at the COAs and take the time to research it and play my Sherlock, maybe I could get there. But otherwise, I would have to think that they're just fudging numbers somehow, and there's some money transferring maybe in the background. I don't know. I'm not going to go that nefarious with it, but how? So why was potency the biggest hurdle, I think, at the beginning for you guys and for the organization? But what's going on? What is truly going on when you can see this product in Ontario or Quebec or BC or anywhere else? It's well over 30. Which, again, we start to question, is it really well over 30, especially when you've got Rick and High North saying otherwise? I don't know. Help me understand this, because it's a big subject.
Yeah, it's probably why we started with it's a subject, and it's an issue that has the attention of, you look at the OCS Reddit page on any given day.
Yeah.
And this is an issue. It has the attention of the community. You talk to bud tenders, they're certainly aware of this. You talk to, let's say, the provincial distributors and the federal regulators, and they're aware of this. And you talk to the members that have come to us and said, we want to level the playing field. So there is and I think if you want to shock someone outside the industry, you tell them about what's going on with THC potency. They're like, well, I thought that was the one thing I could rely on here in the league.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me that numbers are different in different jurisdictions, like same cultivars. So I think, the issue itself is the one that sort of galvanized attention and focus. And I do think that it is a complex issue given the size of the market for flower.
Yeah.
50-60% of sales. It's a big issue. Right. It has significant commercial implications for companies in this industry. It's been, I guess, rewarding or encouraging for us in that the workshops that we've held around this issue, it's sort of two areas that have emerged. One is the sampling practices. How does a licensed producer prepare a sample to be sent to a laboratory for analysis? So are we, and we're just about to start a conversation on our community forums, and I'd love to talk to you about our community forums in a bit, about how do we arrive at a standardized sample, or what does this look like? Because, we're here to serve the community and serve the industry, and the ideas aren't ours. We had just, in a sense, provided the naivete and the platform for this to happen. And the other area is how does a laboratory itself prepare a sample for analysis?
Right.
We're quite confident, Tom, that if we can build consensus on those two approaches and an oversight mechanism, that we can be piloting this with a jurisdiction, with a provincial jurisdiction in early in next year. There's it's complex, but what we've got in a sense is every day we have new members that come to this and people that want to be part of this. And we seem to be building some consensus around the key issues that need to be addressed in order to resolve this issue.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the opposition exactly? Like, cause I see so many issues that affect this, especially when it comes to potency, right? So we've previously discussed sample sizing or sampling coming from the operator itself, right? Or the producer.
Yeah.
Which is just, it blows my mind still. And I understand the fees. So if I'm a micro, you know, if I have, you know, a certain batch size, you know, the limitations on that, because they're expensive, right? I mean, they wouldn't be so expensive if certain fees and regulatory fees were cut potentially. But anyways, you know, so I can send in the same size sample regardless of my batch size at this point. At least that's my understanding, you know, going back from the original days of the regulations. But then you've got provincial distributors, or you're looking for your product calls that are also, no, we need 30+% products. We need, you know, and then you've got the opposition with those in the industry, even your bud tenders, and a large portion of them saying, it's not about potency, people. It's not about potency. So there's so many contrasting opinions when it comes to this, but then you also have certain brands, and I'm just calling them brands because there's a multitude of them, right? We know there's, you know, 1,500 plus licenses, or sorry, 950 plus license holders, but, you know, 1,500 plus brands across Canada. And in those cases, these brands are saying, just leave it alone. Don't worry about it. And sometimes I'm like, are you the ones fudging numbers? Like, why are you saying leave it alone? But I also know some of these operators that are going, leave it alone. We'll figure this out ourselves. So I don't know.
Geez, Tom, that's another great question.
And they're always complex, and I'm sorry. I do apologize. I just went on thinking through it. There's so many.
So, there seems to be an emerging consensus. Well, that's a bit of a bold statement around. It's about the power of the plant, and the experience of the plant is about much more than THC. Regrettably, you know, that is one of the main indicators that the industry is allowed to use when it connects with consumers. So we sort of got to fix that in order to open up the conversation around quality for our initiative to succeed.
Yeah.
We have a big emphasis on consumer education and the need to, and this is again, no mean feat, to try and get the consumer to think beyond that single number. Yeah. And, you know, God, I remember, you know, my conversations with a lot of the BC, let's call them micros and legacy growers about, you know, they didn't get into this to have their product judged by a number, but that's what they find themselves in. So they have, got like Ben Williams from JVCC on our, you know, that's come to join us. And we've got Walker Patton from Woody Nelson that's come to, you know, he's coming onto our board. So these people are, as daunting as this is, and sometimes what's been really powerful is the people that have gravitated to this and wanted to help out and wanted to change it. And, you know, Tom, if you would ask me why, I think it's probably because, like, you know, you and I, if I could be so bold to presume, is that we both believe in the power of the plant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I don't know if I answered your question, but where's the opposition coming from?
Yeah.
Some people are benefiting from the current status quo.
Right.
Why upset that? Some people are, I think, incorrectly are concerned about the fact that we have a couple of big companies on our board.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say to them, you know, one of our first supporters was Origine Nature.
Oh, yeah. Love Dave. We've been back and forth a lot. Dave and Alex and the entire team, honestly. But yeah.
Every time I talk to someone at Origine, I'm really, I'm like, wow, it must be a great.
Just leave energized, right? Like there's something about their culture is so incredible.
Yeah. Maybe it's because they're so close to it. They all live at Montreal.
It could be one of the reasons. Yeah.
And so we've got, you know, like I said, we've got Woody Nelson, we've got JVCC, we have big labs, we have small labs.
Oh yeah.
And some people I think are, you know, are concerned about gatekeepers. We don't need another gatekeeper.
Yeah. That you're right in that aspect. Is that's where we see some of the resounding information or comments coming from, which is we don't need another gate. But listen, Pierre, you just blew my mind with something that I never really realized until you just said it, which is our ability to communicate the benefits or even the product period is that number.
Yeah.
And that, I'm sorry, I have to put back to Health Canada and go, that's one that you need to change, right? So when we look at reform around marketing opportunities, even just allowing, I've begged for years, just allow a QR code on it. Just allow a QR. Let's point consumers, bud tenders back to a single point where they can then learn more about the operator or the brand or the processes. But additionally, you doubled down on it with blowing my mind, which was the legacy operators were never judged by a number. It was product. It was bag appeal. It was, understanding them, how their grow processes. Like I got to know I was that operator. I was not nearly as good as the vast majority that have transitioned in, but it was all based on what are you growing? How are you growing it? I know you. I've developed a relationship. The bag appeal is there. I enjoyed your cannabis. I didn't test it for potency. It was never a conversation. It was, does this get you to where you want to be? Did you enjoy it? And these operators that have transitioned in from the legacy market are now at the service of this, excuse me, but fucking number. And it's driving me insane, right? Because that's what, it's a race to the bottom, ultimately.
Tom, I recall a very interesting conversation about this, how this race to the bottom and this number has had the consequences of driving out of the sector, the innovative cultivars, the lower THC cultivars with maybe more of a terpene profile and that which provide just as satisfying an experience to consumers. So, and that could have a whole host of therapeutic benefits, associated with them. So they're, the land races or whatever, they're being driven out of this focus on high THC. So, and the other thing, so we have to get beyond this number. And I think the other danger that, not danger, the thing that we need to be thinking about is that the race to this number seems to be having very adverse consequences for the reputation of our industry in the broader public. I don't know if you're increasingly going to see, there was the New York Times Daily podcast yesterday about the dangers of legal cannabis. There was the story in the Atlantic about, how what legal cannabis has done is focused innovation on that number.
Yeah.
And with really, and I don't know what the health consequences are. I don't know if they're adverse. I think we as an industry need to be aware of these things.
Yeah.
And if you saw what the Cannabis Act Review Panel said about high THC, high concentration products, there's, to me, there's going to start to be a circle sort of drawn around those and I think we have an opportunity as a sector to come together to sort of create some standards and some rules around these things and to change the way we communicate around this product, that will have a beneficial effect on the health, both the commercial success of our industry, but also the social, responsibility of our industry.
Yeah. Listen, it's all of that is so true. Especially when you're talking innovation. And no, I now I've got to go find the podcast, and I also have to see the report because I would agree. So the innovation focus on high potency is obviously there because I've been present in these product calls. I know the stories. I know the conversations that are going on, which is, well, we're familiar with you. If you can bring this product in at X without infusing as just a flower, and that's where our potency levels are sitting, yeah, we'll take it. We'll take X cases of it. But at the same time, I've transitioned as well. It was never for me about high potency. It was always about the quality of the flower. And now I find myself in this happy medium of I love a really good one-to-one, but I want it to have super robust terp and flavonoids. I need it there because I've matured and I understand the effects of the terpenes and the terpenoids and the flavonoids and what that's going to mean on the body, and then the entourage effect and bringing all those different, major and minor cannabinoids into the picture. That's where our innovation needs to be. But if we're constantly racing or chasing the high potency, I can tell you, every time it's been a high potency product without being infused, it's a bad experience, right? And that doesn't mean I've greened out or anything like that. It was either harsh or, the high wasn't supposed to be. So, man, there's just got to be such a large, complex subject to tackle. And going after potency, I'll allow you to speak to that, because I know that we need to talk about some other things too.
Maybe I could maybe not simplify it, but I think things that we can measure. Terpene profiles, minor cannabinoids, something even like water activity, things that we can measure, we can standardize. And things that we can standardize, we can use to start to talk to consumers about. So standards provide us, I know this is like really wonky, but standards, I think, provide us with an opportunities to start to talk to consumers about the plant in a much more informed way, and beyond that one number. Right. So I think I know that's a mouthful, Tom, Yeah.
But you have to have those conversations, and, especially our frontline are our bud tenders, right? We do not have the ability to market to consumers directly right now. This kind of does. That's why Legacies exist, right? Is we know that we are hitting those fringe consumers, or those kind of curious as well. But I think that given the state 6 years in, this is the conversation that is had. And I do see and hear from really good bud tenders that are, why are you chasing the potency? And they don't say it like that, but why are you after the highest? Now, economics obviously play a huge role. Some individuals just want to get as high as they can for as little money as possible. But, I as much as I am against the alcohol side of it and contrast it compared to cannabis, there is standardization in alcohol, right? Generally, you will not find a distilled product on a shelf with more than 40% alcohol. They've set some barriers, right? Will we ever see that in Canada when we are faced with these infused products and, maybe they're keef coated or distillate or disties in there, hitting 80, 85, 90%. Like, I just don't know where else you go from that when these potency levels are so high.
We have had a lot of interest. One of the surprises in our journey has been the interest of the medical cannabis community in what we are doing, and in the opportunities for medical cannabis to, for standards to support medical cannabis. Because you think about it, when you use a drug and it says it's 50 milligrams of the drug, it's 50, there's a little thing, but it's not, whoa. There's not the variation that you're going to see in this industry. And part of that has been let's call them academic researchers and medical practitioners at universities have really come to us and said, we're really interested in your work because we see standards as a way to advance our knowledge of the plant and our therapeutic uses of this. So I think one of the things that's going to happen out of our work is going to be we're going to get a much better understanding of the let's call it the like most of the innovation's been focused just on the product. Like innovation to be focused on the experience that the consumer has with the product or the patient has with the product. So I think we have a chance with standards and the work that the Cannabis Standards Alliance of Canada is doing to try and advance something like the standard THC unit.
I like that.
We can start to provide consumers with better information, and but new consumers who are interested in coming into this, because many would argue that the long-term success of this industry depends on broadening the consumer base and helping more people understand the benefits of the plant and the power of the plant. Like, anecdotally, I'm old. I play tennis with old people. old person shows up on the weekend, can barely walk, got arthritis in her hips. I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Are you in pain? I'm in incredible pain. I don't want to take opioids. Pierre, I know you work in the pot business. Like, what would you recommend I take?
Yeah.
I have no answer.
Right.
I have no cannabis health. Like, here we are, Tom, 6 years into this. So sorry to digress, but
no, it's great information. And I think that this is one of the areas that's kind of, so when I started into the regulated side, obviously the vast majority of our customer base were working and operating in the medical side. They were setting up their medical channels for distribution, bringing in patients, getting them registered. And there's been this decline, and that's sad to me. It's sad to see that, because we worked obviously very closely with Shoppers Drug Mart, Loblaw, and Ken, who's a reform pharmacist that, was striving to change the industry and moving towards, we need to get DINs and we need to, right? And what an uphill battle. But regardless, we've seen this decline. And I think that, your platforms such as your Mendo's and, your Argentis and the other various ones that are there, they're striving to increase medical. And I think in those cases, when, an individual is approaching you, you say, well, listen, recreational or adult use is probably not necessarily suited. One, because I can't make those recommendations. Two, our bud tenders aren't, hyper focused on it. But three, we can't talk about symptoms. We can't talk about treatment and how that works. But on the medical side, right? On the medical side, this was what is interesting. We had Dr. Ira Price, very good friends with him. He was on and said, we can't say wellness. He goes, well, no, you can't. He goes, but I can. As a health professional, I can. So if we could take those individuals and shift them over to the medical side and see, I'd love to see another rise in medical, another influx, especially from the veterans community, which we are seeing. Love that. But if we could shift that focus a little bit more on the medical side, that's where the opportunities to study, innovation, understand, standardize, right? That's where that's going to happen. And I think people are drawing a blank on that when they're so opposed to seeing, what we want to do. Oh, it's another gate, or regardless of that, let's shift some focus over there and show how much benefit will come. And not only that, export, right? We're going to get a bad rep really quickly. Not that we don't already in some cases, depending on which country you export or origin you're talking about. We're going to get a bad rep where we can't trust your practices, your products. We don't know, right? And then we're going to lose opportunity. And God forbid, well, I mean, it's going to happen regardless, but the U.S. federally legalizes, they are going to eat massive market share very quickly because they have proven time and time again they are masters at export and establishing foreign relations. We, not so well. So I just see this huge complex issue, and it just draws me back to why this is so important, regardless of opposition. Then if you're opposed to it, that's okay. Just stay the course on what you're doing. But there needs to be some standardization.
I wish I could be on your podcast every day, Tom. At the risk of, when we first started this journey, it was really, our focus was on THC potency standards in flower. But by virtue of becoming public and being open to, we just talk all day with people about what's going on. We've identified, people in the community, in the sector, have come to us and said, can you help us with medical cannabis standards? Can you help us in the vaping category? How do we, so what we have is, in a sense, the platform and the mechanism for the groups in the sector to come to start to develop that standard setting process. On November 6th, we're hosting our first vaping standards workshop, and that's going to be chaired by Walker Patton from Woody Nelson and Keith Bow from Aveo.
Wow.
And where we're going to start the process of, what are the areas that we should be focusing on when it comes to standards in vapes, and not wanting to spoil their thunder from, I think you're going to hear Walker talk about the need to standardize terms and products in the vape category. What is a full spectrum vape?
Please do.
You know,
Please
what is a
do.
live, like vaping's kind of my mode of delivery. And, you know, I ask, you know, I still don't know what the difference is between live resin and live rosin, but I'm always offered that opportunity to buy one of those products when I go to a dispensary. Right. I don't know what that is. And so, and maybe, you know, the cannabis CSAC, and we'll get a better name when we become more consumer facing, or we'll be able to help consumers better through standards, understand these products and make more informed choices. You know, someone just told me now all of a sudden there's a new full spectrum distillate.
Okay.
Apparently that's impossible to make. So I don't know.
See, and that's the thing, like we're in the industry and this stuff still boggles my mind in a lot of cases, you know. So legacy operator, I've run big corporations, small corporations, I've worked asset management, I've done a ton of stuff. Move that all in with all that experience into this industry, and you see these different terms being flung around.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, I know what live rosin is. I know what live resin is. I know what bubble hash is. I know them individually. But now you take those into a vape or an infused pre-roll, and it's like, I don't know the percentages used. I don't know if it's Disti plus. I don't know if it's glycol. I don't know. And that's me. Okay. And I would fare to guess that I probably know more than the average consumer. I don't think I'm a know-it-all, and I am far from an expert. But if I'm confused, imagine how confused they are.
Yeah. I speaks to the value and the opportunity we have. You know, in the regulator's defense, and I probably will never say this again publicly. You know,
Wes, get ready to mark the clip.
This category, this industry evolves so fast that, you know, when we started this journey, a lot of people said, well, shouldn't Health Canada just regulate this? And if that's or, you know, the 10 provincial distributors each regulate this.
Right.
Well, if that's what we want, we will find ourselves, you know, falling constant, like they'll never be able to keep up.
Right.
They'll always be struggling with the need to adapt, you know, standards, regulation, oversight. And that'll act as a, you know, I think a barrier to the dynamism and the innovation that you're seeing in the industry. And you know, I'm from Ottawa. So, and I've worked in public affairs my whole life. Even like I remember when I was at the Cannabis Council of Canada and we were working on the beverage equivalency issue.
Okay.
You know, and that was a mistake.
Right.
Like just correcting a mistake in a schedule to the CANSAC took 3 years.
Wow.
3 years of intense lobbying, engagement, research, and it was very expensive. And, you know, so we will, I don't think, you know, we have an opportunity to set our own rules.
Yeah.
And
well, you've just underscored the reason as to why, because I had asked you very early on, why would Health Canada, why would the government of Canada allow the industry to self-regulate and come up with their own standards? You just answered that question the best that I think you could, which is we want them as far removed from this process as possible. But so let's say get through all of this. I feel the work will never be done. I'm going to be honest, man. There's so many, obviously as the organization grows, more people come into play, but there's just so much innovation. There's new product. There's, you know, new actors, there's import, there's export opportunities, there's the medical side with the rise of it potentially coming again. I can't see it, but once standards are set, let's say we've got a place setting, the table's ready to go. We invite Health Canada now potentially and go, do you need to put a stamp of approval? Do you need to adopt this? How does that work? What does that look like?
So standards can be adopted in regulation. They call it incorporation by reference.
Okay.
So there is an opportunity eventually for the standards that we develop to be incorporated into the regulation. For that to happen, the regulator can only adopt standards that have been developed by the Standards Council of Canada, the formal standard setting organization. So our the opportunity or our hope is that one day as we demonstrate success, okay, that we build credibility with someone like the Standards Council of Canada and start to work with them on an adoption program, an adoption mechanism that would allow something like this to be incorporated into the regulation, into the Cannabis Act regulation. So
Got it.
That pathway does exist. 2, standards will continuously evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Even
They
if
would have to.
even if we lock down this THC potency thing early on, it's going to be early on.
Right.
There will be, a need to continuously update and oversee and update this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I picked this up from someone, so I should extend the copyright. Canada is the leader in the federal legalization of cannabis.
Mm.
We are the world leader in the regulation of legal cannabis. And we have the opportunity to be the world leader in the standardization and the setting of industry standards in cannabis. So this is a very, I think, hey, from a very, very humble beginning, we have an opportunity to be a world leader in this area. And that's, I was fortunate enough, I got to go on a mission to the government of Ecuador to help them understand the regulation of medical cannabis, how, because we are seen as leaders all over the world.
Right. Yep.
And what I realized many things on that trip, Tom, but one of them was how lucky we are to have a Cannabis Act.
Yeah. 100%. Yes.
That like, it's got a lot of wrong, it's got a lot of bad, like missed things, or it could really use some improving.
Yeah.
But at least we have something.
Yeah, I agree. This was, my early conversations with the government in Colombia, St. Vincent, Germany, like these regulators trying to think through it. And one of the things that it just kept repeating in my head was, at least we have a North Star. It may flicker, there may be cloud cover, but we've got a North Star. It's not perfect. And as you see, Colombia is a prime example. Back to the drawing board, back to the drawing board, back to the drawing board. It just kept going time and time again. But because I had concern, and I'm glad to see that this initiative is here. I had concern with, we know how progressive certain European countries can be. And when you take Germany, despite all of the, getting to where they currently are, that country in particular, along with potentially Israel, would be, from what I could tell, the front runners in setting standards. Have we ever seen it where other countries set certain standards that Canada would adopt based on the work that they've done?
You have your international standards, ISO. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, okay, duh. Yeah, ISO 9001, 2, 3, 4, yeah, oh my God.
We have a number of, eventually standards, like in order to support international trade.
Yeah.
And the friction there become global in scope. So that's... I think that's and I remember, Tom, and you probably can recall when, like in 2017 and 2018, we were in this, we thought, oh God, the rest of the world, like adult use cannabis will be legal in the rest of the world in 3 years. And here we are, 6 years later.
That's right. Yeah.
And I would argue 2.5 countries have been able to federally legalize cannabis.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's, one of the things so it's very difficult to legalize adult use cannabis. It's very difficult to create a domestic industry, given, I think, it's remarkable that we were able to do this, and kudos to Justin Trudeau for sticking with this, because
the one thing I give him.
Yeah.
It's the one thing I give him.
But what you can't deny is access to medical cannabis.
Right.
Like it's parents whose children suffer from severe forms of epilepsy.
Yeah.
It's veterans and first responders who struggle with PTSD and other issues, mental health issues. It's cancer patients. It's people with arthritis. Like, it's very difficult for a politician to say no to this.
Yes.
So the opportunity we have, and, we grow great weed in this country. We got, and unfortunately that's not celebrated enough or acknowledged enough by our leaders in, let's say, business and exports and government.
Right.
But I think we have, that's why I'm sort of, in a sense, bullish on the opportunity for us to, to set the standards and for these standards to become global in their impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have one quick follow-up question, kind of what we discussed a little bit earlier in regards to some of the pushback and some of the controversy. So I do have one question there. Some of the feedback I've seen is in relation to, you have a membership fee, obviously, for being part of the alliance, and obviously that gets you access to being able to vote for the board of directors and the working groups and things like that. But that that $1,000 fee, right, is potentially fairly small for someone like an Organigram, but potentially quite large for some of these smaller producers, right? And I guess some of the feedback that I've read kind of points to them feeling, the smaller ones feeling like it might be a little bit more pay to win, right? Like if I don't have that, if I'm not a member of that alliance, consumers might see that and might see my product as inferior. And I was just wondering what your kind of response to that feedback was.
Well, thanks very much for the question, Wes. So we do listen, and we are, we're a startup, and so we are open and we're actively thinking about how do we bring the micros into this. Most industry associations that set standards have a fee based on size of the player. So this is something that as we grow and evolve, we will accommodate. So I'm not, that frankly that, so we've heard it, we're open. One of the things that we're going to do in response to this is we're going to create hopefully on Monday or Tuesday next week, we're going to launch our community forums. So this is, let's call it a Slack channel, but it's on our website, but it's very much an opportunity for people in the sector to share their perspectives on issues that we are standardizing. And our, Tom, when we first met, we talked about how one of the things that makes this industry so unique is its communitarian impulse. Its genesis as a community.
Right.
Back in our day, the only way I could access cannabis was through my network. There weren't stores. I had to go to somebody, a friend of a friend, and that's how I built relationships in the sector, in the community. So we have that ethos. We want to capitalize on that. We want to create an opportunity for people to share their perspectives. And as part of that journey, Wes, I think you can influence the design of standards and get to know us. And when it comes time to sort of start the process of voting on standards and certifying standards, we should have a membership fee structure that more accurately represents the nature of our sector. And I should say, hey, we've got LPs on board. We've got labs on board. We've got supply chain participants on board that really want this to succeed. We need dispensaries on board.
I was just going to ask, is there room for dispensaries? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an area where, when Tom, I probably, and Wes, you guys could provide more insight into how to connect with dispensaries than we could. But I keep thinking, my default is always, it's a crowded marketplace. How does a dispensary stand out? Maybe by offering certified products.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm glad that you brought up the communities. I wanted to be able to touch on that. So this will be run through the website, and that's launching next week. That's correct.
Our website's up. It's called CANNSAC, .org.
Yep.
And we have a sort of sign up to be a member. And if people go to that, right now it's free, and anyone can sign up to be a member to participate in these community forums. So we're going to open it up. Perfect. If you want to vote on standards, if you want to certify your products, there's going to be a fee related to that.
Got it. And so is there opportunity, or can CANNSAC already receive government? I just look at this and go, the government's making a ton of money in this sector. Can they finance some of the cost with this project, this not-for-profit? Is there a way to do such? And if maybe they already are, I don't know. Are you able to share?
They are not. They most certainly can. I think we would suggest, well, we would argue, frankly, that they have they played a role in this THC inflation problem. That they are actively, they buy and sell products.
Yeah.
That are mislabeled.
Right.
And should want to play a role in the solution. My experience has been, our experience has been that, agencies, Crown agencies are tightly controlled by their political masters.
Right.
So more likely than not, a conversation about funding and will require engagement at a political level, which we're fully equipped and prepared.
I was going to say, you guys should be prepared and equipped to be able to handle that. I just look at it as, C45, you've got all these distributor regulators together. You've got Health Canada, you've got the AGCO, you've got OCS. They're saying, you guys come up with it. But at the same time, they're conducting the activities that are driving part of the issue. That's like asking 5-year-olds to sort out their own problems and then not giving them any direction whatsoever, but also not giving them a safe space. To me, safe space comes in the way of funding as far as, I'm concerned.
In fairness, we have the OCS, the AGLC, the SQDC, and Health Canada are members of our standard setting observer group.
Nice.
And in our conversations with some of them, they've signaled a willingness to support the success of this initiative on the consumer education front, helping consumers understand that these products are available at their dispensaries, in dispensary settings, as well as communicating the availability of these products to dispensaries in their platforms. So our 35 years of experience in dealing with governments suggests that the way to get government support is to come to them with a winner.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Here's the photo op, Minister.
Right.
We'll stand behind you and clap.
Yeah.
And you can.
You guys do all the work. You figure it all out. You show a proven success path. Then you bring it to us, and then we'll give you a stamp of approval and maybe some monies. And I'm not an apologist for government, but in their defense, being an elected official is just sort of, which hole in the dike should I plug today? Yeah. I know we're hard on them. We're hard on, everything when it comes to the government. But would I step into any of their shoes? Not in a million years. Not in a million years. Listen, Pierre, I think that's, it goes without saying that this is needed. I think the opposition, those cries will eventually die down once they see the progress that's being made. We'll ensure that we've got links up to the website, how people can join. Looking forward to the community, but we'll stay in touch. We'll stay on top of this. Let's make sure that we've got you on the regular, and we can, talk about where you're struggling, but where you're seeing improvement and opportunity and advancement. But count us in, man. We're here to support. Like we, right from the get-go. And we love Paul too. We love Sister Messi.
Well, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Wes. That it's a real privilege to be on the Legacy podcast. I must confess, I've appeared before parliamentary committees. I've been in with ministers, and I was pretty nervous getting ready for today's conversation because I appreciate this is a bit, this is a bit different, and this is a bit wonky, and this also regrettably threatens a lot of people. So I really appreciate your willingness to hear us out today. We welcome the opportunity to come back, and we really thank you for your support. We have a chance to do something here. I think that would be very beneficial, and will mean less gatekeeping and less oversight. So thanks for all your help and your time today.
Of course. Well, we thank you so much, and no reason to be. I think most of our guests typically leave going, man, that was awesome. That was just a conversation. So we should have said that before you came on. Alleviate some of the nerves about it. But Pierre, thanks. Keep up the good work, man. We're here to support as much as we can, and we appreciate you joining Legacies.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Dustin Hughes of RadSource Technologies. Dustin, thanks for joining Legacies, man. We appreciate it.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure, believe me. And you're joining us from Syracuse, New York, which is not home because you're in this lovely hotel room.
Right, I am. I'm out here visiting some clients, and then there's a NECAN show here.
The NECAN show. We hear that's a great show. Haven't been personally, but anyways, we want to understand how a former ZZ Top member, no, just kidding. Love the beard, by the way.
Thanks, right?
But how you came about into RadSource as a company, because from my understanding is you have legacy roots, and the vast majority of us legacy operators were remediation bad, irradiation bad. So
Great.
let's first understand that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, like I say, I've always been a lover of cannabis. I was in Colorado pretty much since day one, the legal market, but of course, was the underground market for a long time, helping operators grow and build out facilities. When the legal market came along, I did a lot to join that group. And then went for licensing in 2012 with a friend of mine. We did a lot of building out facilities and actually did some container growing. Actually have a U.S. patent for container growing.
Wow.
Yeah. And then in about 2018, I picked up my family and moved to Georgia. I had my oldest going to school down in Alabama. And I figured, my days of cannabis are done here. But I was wrong. And I found RadSource Technologies, which happens to be very close to my house. I went in for an interview, realized that they were using irradiation on weed, and was kind of blown away by it, what they were doing. They are a medical device company to start. So I thought there had to be some good things here. They brought me out to Vegas to do a blind taste test because I really didn't believe that this technology was going to eliminate mold and not have effect on terpenes and stuff. And I couldn't tell which product was irradiated. I was really kind of blown away by it. So I was on board at that point. Since then, it's just been full speed ahead with sales with RadSource.
Yeah, that's so. Where is Georgia at in legalization at this point? Are they anywhere near?
Yeah, well, it's a very weak med market.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, put me on the road, coach. Put me on the road. Put me in New York. Put me in Jersey. Put me in Cali. Back to Colorado. Wherever we can.
That's exactly right. Well, when I got hired, they said, well, your territory is, I started from Oklahoma and west, but of course I went right back to Colorado.
Okay.
Where I had those connections and knew that the need was there.
Right. It's got to be a tough conversation. We're going to unwrap and demystify the world of remediation, but it's got to be tough, right? Like you came from those legacy days, you've got a patent in container growing, or at least, similar in there. But is that a tough talk off? Is it, you're going in, let's say, because I'm just thinking through, business development, right? Maybe there's key accounts, maybe you're trying to win new accounts. You're reconnecting with some previous operators. We know a lot of transition from the legacy market into the regulated side. Is it a tough talk off? Like, is it, like, guys, listen, no, it needs to be done, and here's why. Like, what is that like?
That really wasn't it, Tom, because when we stepped into that market, there were so many people battling and struggling to meet state requirements.
Okay.
In that state. So they were saying, hey, what is this? Is this, we've all tried all these everything out there. Like we said, the ozone, reactive oxygen, radio frequency, all these things. And, it just beat up products so bad that it wasn't able to sell. And so, one of our very first customers down there, a guy came and did a demo and said, if this thing works, I'm sitting on, 400 pounds of product and I'm about to go out of business. And we ran the product. He came back a few hours later. They all stood around, they looked at the bag and everybody's kind of examining it. They opened the bag and the smell was there. And the guy said, where do I send, how do I write the check here? I'm on.
Well, first you need to sell your 400 pounds and then you can. right?
Yeah.
You check, because we know like the operators, the U.S. is somewhat different, but they still struggle with very similar outcomes. What we see in Canada, which is, I'll get a PO from a distributor. Oh shit. Now my monies have to be tied up in, product being out. I got to wait for them to pay. They're net 45, they're net 60, 90 in some cases. But at the fundamental issue is, for the vast majority of operators, we see this in Canada. There's a big campaign around, non-irradiated. And I get it. Like personally, I get it. But at the same time, it begs the question of what products are making it to market that are just sitting under that threshold that could potentially have these microbials or, would test on the offside. But it's got to be prominent. For technologies like RadSource to exist, there has to be prominence of bacterias and molds and such in the cannabis we're consuming. No?
Yeah, absolutely. I always use a quote from a good friend of mine in Boulder, Colorado, who is, one of the OG gods of cannabis. And he said to me one day, he said, there's two types of people in the cannabis, those that have mold and liars. And, it was like, it's really true. I mean, and we're not always talking about dirty operations and dirty grows, and those exist, but we're talking about a dirty world, is like we like to say, right? Really it's surrounding you, and you're giving it everything it needs to grow. So, but one of the things to think about is there's a big difference between remediation and decontamination.
Okay.
So the remediation is the scary word, because that's the after the fact, that's the fail, that's the moldy weed, we're bringing back bad product kind of thing. Where once we took off into the market, people started to realize, this is not, if we use it in post-harvest, it's just like anything else. We're going to consider it decontamination. So we don't know if we have it. We don't know how big the problem is, but we're ensuring that it's never there.
Got it. Okay. Wow. You just flicked a switch in my head.
Yeah.
Because we go through these painstaking processes, right? You pheno hunt, you get through the grow, you keep your keepers, and then, you go all the way through, you got a beautiful harvest, you're sitting on a whole bunch of weight. Now you go to dry it. Yeah, things can go wrong. Air showers don't get everything off you, right? And potentially you're introducing some foreign biohazard, because again, we live in this dirty world. So making it part of the process would make a lot of sense. Let's understand the difference between the technology that RadSource provides versus, and I am not an aficionado or expert when it comes to understanding ozone, and I guess there was a steam, oxygen, something at some point in time, but help us define what RadSource provides versus what other opportunities there are out there.
Yeah, sure. So we call it photonic decontamination. Essentially, we are using photons to break up the DNA. So anything with a DNA, we're inactivating that DNA. So, and we're able to do it really down to the core of the product. So if you look at what else is out there, you've got reactive oxygen, you've got ozone. Those are chemical treatments. They don't have the ability to penetrate. There's radio frequency. It's the heating up of the product, the oscillation of water molecules to make that happen. You're creating decarboxylation. There's all sorts of other things that happen. We're a cold process, and essentially we are creating these photons that interact directly with the entire structure of the mold and mildew. These photons have enough energy to disrupt the cellular membrane and the DNA, damaging microorganisms and promoting cell death. So it's high-tech stuff. I mean, it's for really what it is able to do and not affect the product. That's why it's just become this, must-have and a win for operations.
Yeah, geez. I never really thought of it that way. So you're
I'm geeking out over here. I
was going to say, Wes is going to be geeking right out here now. But I'm looking at it because because I understand ozone, right? Years and years and many moons ago, I was in the restaurant and hospitality industry, and we had to go through WHMIS training for ozone, and you can't enter a room because this is what it's doing to the oxygen molecule, and it's going to do this to the odor molecule, etc. But in this case, so you did make a statement about attacking the DNA. Is there no DNA to be attacked in the cannabis plant, in those cannabinoids or terpenes or flavonoids? There's nothing there that it can affect then?
Well, so those living cells are very sensitive to that added energy of photonic treatment, but the large aromatic hydrocarbon structures such as THC are able to reduce those effects of the added energy by spreading them out throughout their complex atomic structure. So it doesn't affect them. It doesn't affect your terpenes. It doesn't affect your moisture, your potency. It's really just going after the live DNA that's active.
Wow, that's wild. And are there competitors on the scene? Like, to me, this sounds like I'm an operations guy, right? So Six Sigma manufacturer. I mean, I wore that hat a long time ago as well. And when you're talking about we're not treating something that went out, it got tested. I mean, some maybe, and I'll ask about that as well. But it's part of the process. I get to my cure cycle, great. Let's hit it with rad source tech. Let's hit it so that we know it's clean. But in other cases, and to me, I'm just looking at it going, well, this is a no-brainer. Like, this is a no-brainer. Like, this is protecting my product. It's protecting the consumer. It's making it saleable and maximizing profits, especially if not degrading the cannabinoids and the terpenes. Why wouldn't I? I get maybe a cost barrier potentially, but also what is the ramification and cost offset if I don't, and there's a recall or something that happens, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Not only recalls, failed testing, cost, reputation, there's a lot of things. And like you say, it's we're all in this game for the end consumer, right? Mm-hmm. And I always say to people, because people say, well, I've been smoking moldy weed my whole life, and we all know that, right?
It's not something to be proud of.
Yeah, no, but, we've all done it. And,
sure.
But, we introduced this medical marijuana, and now people with immune compromise come on the scene, and they, if you were a doctor and you were saying, hey, I want to be able to get somebody off opioids or one thing or another, I want to ensure that I'm going to get them to the safest product. Well, this is it.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. So if you step back and you look at RadSource and you look at what we do, right? We're a medical device company. Our number one vertical is blood. We irradiate blood for blood transfusions, and we put it back in the human body.
Wow.
So we have a blood division. We have a small animal, the Harvards and Eli Lillies and Red Crosses of the world use us.
Wow.
About 3 years ago, we went into an SIT division where we sterilize mosquitoes and moths, and we put them back out in the environment.
Hold on. Why'd you put them back out in the environment? That's the first question.
Well, and this is not my vertical. I'm not this one, but because I don't like bugs as it is, and I live in Georgia where there's lots of bugs. But so what they're doing is they're sterilizing mosquitoes, and they're able to put them back out in the environment, do what they do, and eliminate pesticides.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's amazing stuff. So
wow.
But you would ask kind of about competitors and what else is out there.
Yeah.
In 2019 is when we came out with our first unit, our 420XL unit. And before then, we spent a lot of time looking at what's called point source X-ray.
Okay.
It was a very difficult challenge because they weren't able to get what's called even dosimetry through our product. So RadSource created what is called it's called a photonic storm is what's happening in there. It's our Quastar emitter. So if you were to look inside this machine, which is considered a cabinet X-ray, you're creating this cloud of photons in a box, and you are moving the product, rotating it on a carousel around the emitters. So it allows for that even dosimetry throughout the product. Really important. So when it comes to competitors, there's a lot of guys using that point source. It creates what's called a heel effect. So you have hot and cold spots. But the RadSource equipment and that emitter is what really makes us unique. And again, we were the first out there in that 2019, and we've just done nothing but grow since then because the reliability of it and what we can do with it is it's
that's
awesome.
Wild. So how much product because I've seen, forget the company, and this is probably going back to my earliest days on the regulated side, was maybe 2017, 18 when e-beam technology was introduced. And it was big in Europe, I think, at the time, because they were bringing like skids of food potentially through, and it was doing this on a mass scale. So imagine a skid. But how big of a, I don't know, bag, sea vault of cannabis can one take care of at a time?
Yeah,
Like, with the rad source.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and you're right. There's E-beam, there's gamma, and that's what up in Canada you guys see, in the Netherlands they've been using it forever. But what RadSource is, it's kind of that in-house solution, right? So we've got a series of different units, but our big unit, let's talk about our XL, which is our biggest, that does 50.
The 420 XL.
The 420 XL.
The 420 XL.
Yeah, rated by somebody in Georgia with a 420 mine. So, but so that's a 50-pound unit. So what you're able to do is load up those carousels. There's 5 rotating tubes in there. And what's awesome about this too is you can put product in just a regular sized turkey bag, or you can put product in your final packaging, and you're going to penetrate right through the package. So what that does is it eliminates the risk of cross-contamination. So you're not treating it. Some of these other technologies, you treat the product and now it all goes to the next step and you're having to bag it.
Right.
Well, as you guys probably know, there's contamination from the front door to the back door in an operation. So especially in packaging, especially in pre-rolls, it's, when you look at aspergillus, it's in the paper, it's in the process, So, yeah, we're able to load your product up in there, whether it's trim, shake, you can do buds, you can do pre-rolls. A lot of people do it in there, and you can penetrate through that final packaging and never, but the number one thing I like to tell people is we're going to get you to an undetectable level, right? So we all talk about the threshold, right? Yeah. So that's like saying, I got a piece of bread and it's only moldy on one side, right? So, if you're not down to an undetectable level today, and you're at 9,000, let's say in the 10,000 CFU market, well, what is that tomorrow? What is that by the end of the week when that consumer picks it up?
Because it'll just continue to grow.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't matter what you do to it. It doesn't matter if you freeze it or cold, it's still there. It still grows. So we're getting it down to that undetectable level. It's giving the product a shelf life. And again, safest thing for the consumer down the line.
Wow.
I've got a quick question, actually, and this might actually be a stupid question. I don't know, but
no stupid questions, Wes. There's no such thing.
Does the process, is it really only necessary on flower itself, or would you put a package of edibles through there, like gummies, and to do that process there as well, or is that even necessary?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, most of the time, any of those things are edibles and stuff are gone through hydrocarbon. So in a hydrocarbon process, you're wiping all that out. Now there is cold press rosins and things like that that people use. They use a RadSource machine on. Remember, we're going after anything with DNA. So not only powdery mildew and aspergillus, but we're able to address things like salmonella and E. coli. Right? And believe it or not, they're out there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So
wow.
That's a good question, Wes. And a lot of people ask that. I'm always amazed at somebody, again, we started with flour when we started this, and then we brought it out to the market, and people are like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, and now I'm doing bubble hash, and I'm doing this.
Well, with the ability to penetrate, I mean, it makes sense. You'd want to make sure you have a clean product, but I'm thinking of so many, within Canada, we see it on Reddit. Reddit is, it can be just horrible for, brands. We'll say brands, but we would know of a very astute producer processor that puts out a great product time after time. And then all of a sudden there's this bag of moldy weed that's got all these photos. This is what it looks like. And then you get other retailers or bud tenders chiming in, oh, I've seen that. And then you get consumers going, I've seen that. And it starts to make me think that maybe they got it to the threshold. And then it's like, okay, well, we're within the threshold. Let's just ship it. Fuck it, ship it. Right? Good enough. And then it just over time starts to grow because maybe it didn't sell. It's sitting in the back. We know that retail locations, dispensaries do not have climate control in most cases. And it's even gone as far, I don't know if you see this throughout the US, we have certain provincial distributors or regulators even that are now starting to mandate in transportation humidity and climate control vehicles, which just adds even more expense to an already overbearing market on tight margins. So to me, I would just look at it and go, okay, I can't imagine it's, a cheap product. I'll say cheap. I don't normally use the word cheap, but you know, in order to have in my process, but I'm thinking of the ramification of not. And that, like, because one bag of moldy weed that makes it to Reddit can sink a brand overnight. Like, just, and it could be the best living soil, you know, organic producer. We know them, Dustin, we know them. I mean, you came from Colorado, man. Like, you know, there's a lot of painstaking effort that goes into making sure that that product is cured properly to get it to a state where the consumer is just going to fall in love with it. But at the same time, back to your statement of it's a dirty world, anything could affect that. Then it goes to Reddit, then I'm done. I'm screwed. Like, how do I recover from that? What is the most challenging aspect of bringing rad source to producers and processors? Is it understanding? Is it cost? Is it like, what is it?
I think it's, you know, I'm amazed at how many, and, you know, I've been with them since 2019. I've sold a lot of units with these guys, and it's, you know, there are those quick sales, but there are always those ones where people are saying, you know, we figured it out. We know what it is. You know, we changed this, we changed that. And I'm always amazed at all the different things that people say. You know, it was in the medium. It was in air filtration. I had somebody recently tell me, we figured it out. It was in our water. And I don't know how that could be, but, you know, but so, you know, you're always, I say, you know, step back and look at how much you're spending and you're putting into chasing this kind of invisible problem.
Yeah.
And so I always say to people, you know, do what you do best, right? You know, you guys grow good weed. Don't go outside of the parameters that you think are unsafe. You know, grow the great product, grow the strains you like. And you use this as that final step in the operation, and you're always going to guarantee a great product in the end.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, again, working operations, understanding that efficiencies, diagnosing, chasing problems, it's so expensive and they're uncalculable in most cases. Like, they just do not take into account, okay, I had my entire grow team, my entire fertigation team looking into something, and you diagnosed this, they tested the water, they checked the nutrients, you know, the import on the nutrients, there might be something there. Like, why? Like, yeah, okay, I get it. Dial it in. But at the same time, put this into your process, and then you don't have to spend all of that time just diagnosing and assessing.
Yeah. It's true. You know, I can speak to another customer I had up in Colorado that, you know, this guy was making his employees go and, you know, they had to wear their own clothes. They had to shower before they went to the grow. They had to do all these things. He was having companies come in and clean the drains and endless amount of stuff, but he continued to fail here and there. They weren't high levels, but it was still a presence. You know, if you guys are familiar, Colorado has a secret shopper program, right? So if you're familiar with that, Tom, they pass you guys. Yeah, so you pass, right? Let's say you pass at, you know, 9,000 in a 10,000 world. And then they come in and they pull product a week later and they test it again. So if you're not getting to that undetectable level, you know, that product is always kind of arising, right? So, and, you know, and then of course, you kind of hit on the subject a little bit about, you know, we all know what happens at a certain temperature, and it even happens with samples going to the labs. I've seen samples, and, you know, I hate to say it, but Oklahoma was a state that was, everybody says, the Wild West. And, you know, it was. I mean, it's getting better, but they were, you know, the guy would come out, pick up samples, and and then he does 10 other stops, and it's 100 degrees out, and brings it back to the lab, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's always there. So no matter how much you're fighting it, you know, and I mean, there are people that seem to don't have it. But again, you know, there's just too much risk from the front door to the back door of exposure in the process outside the world trying to get in.
Dude, you're making me only want to consume cannabis that's been rad sourced. I'm not even kidding. Like, I've got massive OCD when it comes to certain things, but on the other side is, and I've done really well, but you're not helping me here, is a bit of a germaphobe. And now I'm sitting here going, okay, how do I ensure that the weed that I'm buying has a rad source technology? I need to make sure that rad source has been involved here. I'm not promoting it. You're not paying to be on this show. It's not a matter of this. We're going through this series of clean versus dirty weed. I want to get into the medical side of it, because last week we had on, it was a nurse from the ACNA talking about Nicole Ryan. and she was talking about the, the prominence of it. It exists, but are we at a point where, because I want to go to import export as well and understand that and how rad source technologies can help. But are we getting to a point where even on maybe just the medical side, that we'll start to see certain mandates or at least recognition from the ACNA or similar where these products or this process or the technologies used, we can vouch for? Maybe not fully get behind because we know that the challenges with government and the way things work, but are we seeing where, like, to me, I just look at it as it's a safety standard almost now. Like it's something that should be considered, especially on the medical side.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's, if you look at radiation and where else it's used, right? If you've consumed any sort of spices and salts and peppers and oysters and, all those things. And like you say, Tom, it's used as a safety, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think it's, when you see like the MED in Colorado last year put together what they called use by date, right? It's called fit for consumption.
Yeah.
So, there's another thing, and I suppose they probably do similar things up in Canada, but there's really
not that side of it, packaged on, but no expirations.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, one of the things in the regs in Colorado that they said, if you can show otherwise, if you're using a remediation or decontamination type technology, you can show otherwise. And essentially what you're looking for is stability testing. You're looking for a shelf life of the product. Right. And that's what we're able to do. We're able to ensure that because, whether is it in the product, is it on the consumer? Is it on the producer's hands and products and the hair making it? Is it in the bags? I've heard it's in the gloves. It's just like a food or a process in sausage making. There's got to be something along the line there. It's safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you talk about the secret shopper program going on in Colorado, I'm thinking, so in Ontario here, we've had the OCS. There's this big, lab testing and lab shopping thing going on, and a race to the bottom based on potency. We actually just had someone from the Cannabis Standards of Canada on, where they're trying to get standardization when it comes to testing.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking, like, maybe we should be just going in and pulling them in and running the microbials on them. Like, because I think, at the end of the day, they're potentially only checking the potencies, right? So in Canada, which you're probably familiar with, is we can't put a lot of information. Do I have any? I have something. Yeah, we can't put a lot of information on our packaging. It's one of the regulations, the most overbearing when it comes to our regulations. So you'll see, your cannabinoid content obviously has to be there. You can put your terp content on there, but anything outside of that, it's basically a no, right? So you can put a lot number on, you can put packaged on. There is no recommendation for expiry unless it's food. Which is only a recommendation. I do not think it's a mandate. But for me, I'm looking at this going, okay, fuck the potency for a minute, guys. My germophobia is kicking in. Let's go test just, product that we know has not been, and I'll hazard to say rad sourced at this point, because the other ones, it's just no fucking way. I'm sorry, I'm not getting behind them. But let's see where the microbial content is on them. Let's see, are those molds growing? And let's see who the operators are, because I know, just like you do, I've got some OG legend friends that they grow and produce the best weed. They do a cold cure 60-90 on it. And how much have I consumed that could potentially have mold in it?
Right.
Which, again, a lot will argue, I've been smoking it my whole life. It'll wear off over time. But we don't know about underlying issues that could be leading to immunocompromised situations until there's a problem. We maintain our vehicles, we maintain our house. Like, why would we not want to maintain our bodies as well and ensure what we're putting in is where it needs to be?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's dead on, Tom, for sure. I mean, that's a great way to look at it, because you really don't know those long-term effects. We've all done it, we've all used it, but really, what is it doing to us down the line?
Yeah. The buildup of the old factory days, right? Bathing in spray nine, right? Like, I got grease, it's fine. Even there's carcinogen labels and cancer-causing elements all across everything.
Yeah.
I don't know why my arm doesn't work, but okay, let's move on to understanding. So in medical, obviously, there's one opportunity. In the U.S., state to state, a little bit different. in Canada, we have certain standards across the board. I don't want to use a standard. Standards is wrong terminology. Regulations. Canada obviously is a very big mover on export. And in Europe, there's a vast majority of these countries that are, countries of origin, being Canada, countries of import, destination. There's issues where certain countries will only allow product if it has gone through some sort of remediation. But I like that you've set me straight on remediation. Is you see a problem, you're going to fix it. This is an absolute wherein process and operations, you're getting ahead of it.
Yeah.
How does RadSource play into that export opportunity?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I can answer so much on that. I've been really focused on, inside the U.S., but again, if you look at it and you're exporting products and you long distance travel and all those kind of things, and who knows what those conditions may be at that point, if you're able to take product, process it in a bag and give it a shelf life, at that point, I don't see anything, a better way to do that and ensure by the time it reaches its destination, it's still continue to be a safe product.
Yeah. Is there a market in Europe right now? Is RadSource? So RadSource is Canadian and US, well, North American. What other countries is RadSource present in?
Oh, we are everywhere, and I'm not a big part of our international team. They keep me home, maybe because I got the long beard and they want we're in the States.
You're not flying anywhere, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You smell like cannabis.
Exactly, but we do amazing things in all around the world. We did a great study with a company called Bright Labs. If you guys get a chance to look at, we are everywhere. We do shows in Berlin, we do shows in the Netherlands, you name it. So we are definitely a worldwide company. And, when it comes to, like our blood vertical, like I said, we're in every hospital in the world.
Yeah.
And when it comes to cannabis, we're going to be the same thing. We want to be everywhere in the world.
You've sold me on the fact that medical devices was number one. I want to know the individual responsible that went, yeah, we got the medical side on lockdown. We're going into cannabis because I smoke a couple blunts a day and we need to make sure we're consuming clean weed. Who was that?
Yeah, I don't know. I always tell a story and I don't know if it's true, but I say that, somebody called up RadSource and said, hey man, can I put my weed in there? And I really think it was, and I've heard parts of that story. There were some guys up in Michigan that were familiar with the technology, but there's a lot of really bright minds at RadSource, and they knew what it could do, and they knew that the cannabis market was there, and there was a big need for it.
Yeah, you can tell. But again, I love anything born from medical. I think I enjoy because I understand the sterile nature, coming back to my germophobia. It makes sense to me. So, what do you foresee the future with the federal scene of cannabis in the U.S.? What's your take on it?
Well, I mean, we've all been waiting for that. I don't know what's going to happen with it. We're, so kind of, for those of us that have been in forever, we hear that, or just like, we're all ready to go when it does. And then,
it's a waiting game, right?
It's a waiting game. Yeah. And, but I think as far as the world of RadSource, there's no doubt that when, EMP standards and the federal government and all these things start to come forward, it's, because you look at it, right? We've got from coast to coast, the CFU levels and what they test for is all over the place.
What's CFU?
The colony forming units of cannabis, microbes. Okay. So, like it's 10,000 in Colorado, it was 1,000 in New Mexico, it's 100,000 in California. They're constantly, trying to dial that in. But I think the day the federal government takes it over, it's like, all right, well, we're setting the standard here, and here's what it's big. And that's where we're going to have that ability to meet whatever that may be.
Yeah. How is there such a delta between the states on, it could be 1,000, I forget where you said it was, but up to 10,000 or 100,000? Like, how is that even possible?
I don't know. I really don't. And I don't know how they come up with it. And, the other one that we're not really, we've been talking about yeast and mold, but when it comes to aspergillus, right? That is the nastiest stuff that's out there. And some states test for it, some don't.
Yeah.
You know, so in that one, when you look at that, you know, that's most of the places it's a one spore. So it's, you know, it has to be no presence of it. And Aspergillus thrives in spent plant matter, right? So it's everybody's got that somewhere in the garden, you know. So
Jesus.
it's you know, so you know how they come up with the numbers, I don't know, but it seems like they continue to tighten it. They've always looked to certain states, you know, of course, Colorado is one of them, that ground zero. I mean, I think they've done a fantastic job in that state to protect the consumer. And, you know, those other states look at it. So, you know, they know, you know, New Jersey's one I look at, they test for yeast and mold, and they will be bringing Aspergillus on. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
So somebody makes those decisions that, hey, you know, this is going to be the best thing, and hope they're doing it long before, you know, somebody actually consumes it and dies with that compromised immune.
Yeah.
You know?
So, man. Well, and Nicole actually last week, she brought that up with the Aspergillus, and it's not something that we really talk about in Canada too much. I mean, we haven't identified it, but to me, after the research and understanding, I mean, that's the Ebola of all your molds and your issues. Like, that's the one you don't want to mess with. And I think, so Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, Wes, but she was North Carolina, which has this thriving hemp market with the THCA. Or sorry, what is it? It's coming from hemp.
No, you're right.
You're right. And not a lot of standards when it comes to testing. It's, you know, they're drying them in old tobacco kilns and stuff, and it's got to be present. It has to be present.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, you know, yeah, it's amazing, because there are states, you know, like up in the Northwest, they've eliminated a lot of the testing, you know, and, you know, I understand, and coming from the growing background and the stress it puts on the cultivator, it's difficult. It's very hard to do what these guys do, come out with that fantastic product, and meet all those regs. So, you know, so it's one of those things that I think that they'll, like I say, they'll continue to tighten that noose around them. But, you know, here's an option. Here's a solution for these guys. You know, do what you do, grow the great product, and let RadSource do the rest.
I fucking love that. I love that. Listen, all Canadians that are watching this, if you have operations, please reach out, understand it. I get it. You know, technologies are not cheap, but at the same time, I'm just thinking how, like, so a funny little story. The OCS Ontario Cannabis Store, they're running a campaign against the illicit market right now. It's not really to promote, it's really just fear mongering on the illicit side. So they had a pop up. They've got all these ad campaigns, and the campaign itself is called Buzz Kill. And, you know, they're showing that you don't know what's in your product. These products aren't tested. They're not, which we argue, there's some truth to that. But I mean, you know, as legacy operators, some of our product were tested. We know potency levels. We knew what was in it. But at the same time, now you start talking threshold. So I see some advantage as to what they're doing. Maybe this will shine a little bit of a light on it and go, hey, you don't, even if you have products, and I come back to our labeling issues, I would love to see this has been RadSourced on a package, right? Just for my own peace of mind, especially, and I'm going to find, Wes, we'll find an operator in Canada that is running RadSource technologies. I know there's some, maybe Corey knows some. I want to do my own blind taste test. I want to just to prove to everyone, listen, I get it. I see the campaigns. I understand where it comes from. I was a legacy guy, right? Yeah. But at the same time, let's understand there's no way I could guarantee. There's no way, now knowing all of this, there's no way I could guarantee that there was not some sort of bacteria or mold in the product I was putting out. Maybe not when it left my place, but transport across Canada, who knows over time.
Yeah. Can I tell you what I want? Because I just noticed this is I want Dustin's hat, because I just noticed that it's DNA. It's a DNA sequence being broken by the photons, and that's fucking DNA. Amazing.
Yeah, that's
I need that hat.
So Tom breaking it up. And Wes, I will get you a hat. Tom, I'll get you one too.
Oh, I love it.
Dope,
I love it.
Dope.
I know.
So nice.
I didn't say anything right at the gate, but right away I'm like, oh yeah, that's DNA strands and it's being broken. I get it.
Yeah, that's it.
Listen, Dustin, man, we could geek out forever on this. We look forward to meeting you in person when we can. But anyways, it's been a pleasure having you and representing the RadSource and helping us understand this world. I'm hoping we've tipped some sacred cows, because
I think so.
The world, for some reason, and I think a lot of it born from Legacy, is just against remediation. But let's correct everyone. Remediation is, you have a problem. Now you're going to fix it. I've seen what botrytis does to a plant. Right. So, but we appreciate you coming out Legacies and explaining this, man. It's been very enlightening. I'll tell you that much.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad it was a good, very informative for you guys. Tom, I really appreciate it. Wes, thanks so much, guys, for having me on. And anytime, give me a shout. I'm always happy to talk.
Of course. And we will send you a mailing address for those hats because, wow, just wicked awesome. We appreciate it. But thanks, Dustin. Enjoy NECANN. Enjoy Syracuse, but I'm sure you'd be glad to get back home when you can.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Tom.
Awesome.
I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, man.
See you guys.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
Wes, there's so much going on in this industry. How do we cover it all? Seriously. Standards and remediation, but not remediation. I'm so germaphomed out now. It's not even funny.
Well, the RadSource Dustin's segment was very interesting to me because, again, I knew nothing. I knew very little about irradiation going into it, and all my exposure to the terms of irradiation and all that stuff have always been negative connotations. That's the only light I've ever heard them in. So I guess I was already biased, and I'm not saying I think I'm 100% sold. I don't know, but I'm definitely more like, the way he explained it and their process and all that stuff definitely makes sense to me. Why wouldn't you want to if it really doesn't affect the end product?
I think part of me also wonders smart. Go ahead.
Part of me also wonders if a lot of the complaints that people have made about this type of radiation, I'm wondering if is it placebo? Is it just I'm stuck in? You shouldn't do anything to this product because you know what I mean? Maybe that's part of it. I don't know, but
well, I do see the claims, right, and I understand why but I think it's that general assumption or that general thought across the industry that. That's why I said, radiation bad, remediation bad. And I think it's there's some players potentially that, meaning the technologies, they're maybe not up to snuff, and that cascades, right, across the industry, especially for the operators. But then you get operators that stand behind that and say, never irradiated, never. But for me, if it's as safe as a technology like RadSource provides, then why wouldn't you? I get cost prohibition. I understand that, from an operation standpoint. But to me, I then look at it, are there services that I use RadSource technology? You can bring your product to me, you ship it to me, or maybe I'm near you, I don't know, whatever. And we can do that just to, again, it's bringing it down to an undetectable level, not a threshold. That is super important to me, right? I want to make sure I know what the hell is being consumed. But I think it was super smart on RadSource's part to bring in an OG legacy operator, someone that understood it, to be able to talk this off. Because, like he had said right on the onset, he said, I went through a blind taste test. I went through, right, in this taste, not necessarily just the taste, it would be the bag appeal, the smell, the aromas coming out, and couldn't tell the difference. And I mean, again, this is a company that it's from the medical side. They're doing blood. They're, why the fuck they let those mosquitoes back again? I'd have no idea. I have no idea. But anyways, I'm so intrigued by it now. It makes me want to just go into a rabbit hole of research and understand this even more. Because again, I do understand the early days E-beam, not early days, when it was introduced at least. And ozone, I know ozone, no good. I know that part at least. But if you're not destroying, if you're only attacking the DNA, and those are the mold spores in your, your different bacterias, great. Get that out of my product. I don't want that in my product. This isn't something we're eating, right? Well, I guess it is.
I think the other really interesting
in some products, but
yeah, the other really interesting where he said you could have your sealed packaging go through that,
yes,
and still get it irradiated and not, that's crazy to me. And then you not have that decontamination, or sorry, cross contamination piece after the fact of great, now putting in the packages, but all the work I just did is fucked because
well, how do you know your Mylar bags and your Dube tubes and all these packaging that they are 100% sterile, right? Not all operations are created equally, and in some cases you could be introducing some foreign hazard to your process. But anyways, that's on the RadSource side. And then I see so much opportunity. I understand, there's some negativity, there's some individuals when it comes to standardization. I get that. I understand both sides. I really do. For me, seeing us progress as an industry and the opportunities, especially before U.S. federal legalization potentially happens, we need to be in a position where we've got our shit figured out. We have standardizations. We understand potency testing. We understand terp testing. We understand, the thresholds and where we need to sit on bacteria and molds and all these different things so that we can own export. There's enough to be produced here in Canada that we can take massive market share before the U.S. federal legalization happens. And we know that, as we tie those two together, rad source and standardization as two. I mean, this just makes sense. Obviously, we didn't stack the episode this way on purpose, but in that vein, I see us with a huge opportunity that we could miss if we don't get our shit together. And Tony's talked about this before. We had Tony Chapman on and talking about, Canada's on the global stage of cannabis. We've kind of missed the boat in some aspects, but we have a chance to recover. But I think it's a very small window of opportunity.
Yep.
Anyways, all right. Well, it's been a great episode. We've got Tether and stuff coming up soon. There's a couple other events. There's just keep up to date. There's so much going on up in here anyways. I don't know what to do. Right? Okay.
Yep.
Till next week. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Legacies. We'll see you next time.